What I'm going to be talking about today is the Renters' Rights Act. This is a piece of legislation. It was originally the Renters' Reform Bill, brought in by the Tories a year or so back. They've been working on it and they were pushing it through as quickly as they could, and obviously we had the change of government. Labour have relaunched it as the Renters' Rights Act with their own little twist on it. They've changed the name. They are pushing it through. They say they're absolutely committed to pushing it through, and they want it in as quickly as possible. And the whole idea of this legislation is to make things better for tenants. What I'm going to talk about this morning is 8 of the key points, the headlines that are included in the latest version of the Act. Well, it's a bill at the moment, it becomes an Act once it's enforced, and how they will impact the industry. What I will say is that some of the points I completely agree with in the latest copy. There are other things that really do concern me, both as a landlord and as an agent. It was obviously designed to make things better for the tenant. I don't think it will actually improve things in the long run, and there is quite a lot in this. The first of the points is that fixed term tenancies will be banned. So the whole concept of a 6 or a 12-month fixed term, which is how our industries work, will be going. They're talking about it coming in spring 2025. I think personally it's going to be summer 2025 or even autumn at the earliest, because there are a lot of changes included and there's still a bit of a process to go through. So when it does come in, it will come in one go. So basically once it's introduced, it becomes law on every single tenancy that's in existence. So even if you've only just signed a new tenant up, they will move over to the new arrangement. So if they were on a fixed 6 or 12 month or even 2 or 3 year contract, they will move straight on to an assured tenancy rather than an assured short-hold tenancy, which means that they will be able to give 2 months' notice at any point on a rent day. So essentially, the longest you can tie a client in will be 3 months. So that is a big headline. I don't think that will affect things for most tenancies, and actually in some ways it's a good thing, because it just gives the tenant more flexibility to stay as long as they want to. And it gets away from this tying them in for a period of time where they may need to, or they may know they're going to leave in that next 6 or 12 months. So that is a good thing, except for the sort of more specialist tenancies where landlords are looking to rent to a certain sector. The biggest one of these, I think, is the student market, where at the moment students rent for an academic year. It might be a 9 or a 10 or an 11-month tenancy, depending on where you are in the country. Now it will go on to this rolling tenancy, so that could be a massive problem. Students are probably celebrating at this point, the landlords are panicking, and I suspect what will happen is the bill will get amended. If it doesn't get amended and it classes students like every other tenancy, then the students, I think, will start to leave halfway through the academic years, and obviously that's going to leave a shortfall in rent. I suspect the answer from the landlords will be to put the rents up. So although, again, the best intention of the bill is to make it better for the tenants, why break a system that's working perfectly well at the moment, which it is doing for the student tenancies. That's a little bit on how the tenancies will change. The next little problem, I say a problem, it's a good thing in many respects, but for landlords this will be seen as a problem, is that Section 21s are going to be banned. When you want your property back as a landlord at the moment, you can give 2 months' notice as long as it's out of the fixed term, and the tenant has to comply and leave. Non-fault evictions, Section 21s are going to be banned. All the evictions moving forwards are going to be on what's called a Section 8. Section 8s have been around for some time, and there are different grounds within the Section 8 where you can ask your tenants to leave. And the good news is that the bill going through at the moment has some extra bits in the Section 8, so in certain circumstances the landlords will be allowed to ask their tenants to leave. The 2 most significant, I think, are if the property owner wants to move back to the property, they can serve 4 months' notice, but this can't be done in the first year. Or if they want to sell their property, again, they can give 4 months' notice to the tenant, and it can't be done in the first year. Now, you're probably thinking at this stage, well, that's not a problem, because, you know, as a landlord, I'll just tell my tenants I'm going to sell it, and I can give my tenant notice, and then when they've gone, I'll put some new tenants in. The committee putting this together have already thought of this, and there are enormous penalties if you use that incorrectly. So, for instance, you're not allowed to relet the property in the first 12 months after you've used this notice. If you do relet in that period of time, the fines are up to £40,000, so it's not insignificant. And you may also be asked to contribute to the compensation to your tenants, which I'm told is up to 2 years worth of rent. So this could be enormous, eye-watering sums of money that it will cost you if you abuse that system. Those are the only real two ways to get your tenants out, unless they are breaching the tenancy agreement. And again, have a look at the grounds. You can go to the gov.uk website and you can download the whole copy of the bill, but also there's a good summary on there of the revised grounds for getting your tenants out. But the long and short of it is, you will not be able to get your tenants out unless there is a very good reason to do so, or you wish to sell, or you wish to move back into the property yourself. The next little nugget in there is pets. Now, I'm a dog lover, I love animals, and I would openly say I would be happy to have some animals in my property. As a landlord, would I want somebody with several animals in my property? No, but the current version is saying that you need reasonable grounds to refuse pets. And I don't think reasonable grounds will be that you don't want your carpet messed up. So again, that will affect a lot of landlords, and as you're probably gathering, this whole bill is going to upset landlords so much that many are starting to think about getting out of the market. So although yes, you will be able to keep pets in your properties, I have a horrible feeling that landlords are going to go, I am not going to carry on renting my properties out. I won't say too much about pets. There is also a facility in the bill to insist that tenants take insurance against pets damaging properties. So there is a little bit of reassurance that you can, if you're saying, yes, I will take a dog, you can force the tenants to take insurance against the dog ruining the carpets. So again, that is a little positive in there. Next big topic is that decent home standards will be brought into the private sector. You've probably heard of Awaab's law, which is the law that says homes have to meet a certain standard, and this was brought in when a little boy tragically died as a result of a property being damp and mouldy. It was a local authority property, and the local authority were found to be at fault in not maintaining the property to a certain standard. As a result, housing associations and local authorities need to meet certain standards for their properties. That is being rolled out to privately owned properties, so it shouldn't affect responsible landlords. I'm hoping it won't be abused, that tenants won't push for things that they wouldn't otherwise get, but on the whole I think that is a positive thing in the bill, that a certain standard will have to be met by all rental properties. And obviously we've got the energy performance standards already, so again that should not be affected there either. There are also anti-discrimination measures being introduced. So we are not going to be able to discriminate against people on benefits, although I am told people on benefits will still need to meet affordability criteria. So although you can't discriminate against where the money is coming from, you can still only let your properties if people can afford it. And again, that is a good safeguard for both tenants and landlords. We don't want people to be renting properties they can't afford to pay for. On top of that, we can't discriminate against people with children, which for some properties will be absolutely fine, but we all know that some properties don't work well with children. If you've got a top floor flat where maybe the sound insulation is not going to be as good and some elderly residents below who just want a peaceful life, you probably don't want children in that. So again, that might cause a few problems. And finally, you can't discriminate against people with pets. Yes, you have to give reasonable consideration to pets, and this part of the bill says you can't discriminate against them as well. So the next point in the bill I'm going to touch on is rent increases. Now the good news is we can still increase rents using Section 13s. You can serve a Section 13 notice once a year to increase the rent in line with market value. Nothing's changed there. What has changed is that if the tenant appeals the rent increase, then the rent increase can't go ahead until it's been to the first tier tribunal. And only when it has been to the first tier tribunal can that rent increase then. This is a real concern to me because it will probably take, 4, 6, 8 months to go to a tribunal, and the landlord cannot then backdate the increase in rent. So in my mind, for every tenant, when the landlord chooses to put the rent up, it is a no-brainer that they will go to appeal because that rent won't go up. And it probably won't go up for 6 or 9 months. I don't know how long it's going to take. Say it's going up £100 a month, which is not uncommon. That's 6 months where the tenant is going to save themselves £600 in total. It's an absolute no-brainer. I think every rent increase will end up going to appeal. And of course then the tribunals will get backed up, and maybe it's going to take a year, 2 years to get to a tribunal. I don't know how long, because I haven't heard they're putting extra tribunals in place. And the landlord still then can't backdate it. So if they were perfectly justified in putting the rent up, then they can't backdate it to when it should have gone up in the first place. Again, the landlords are getting hit. The tenants are getting a huge bonus here, and I think there'll be a cost for the landlords as well, because every agent in the country is not going to do this free of charge, because it is quite an intensive process going to a tribunal. You've got to pull comparables together. It takes a few hours. Even if it's completely justified, it's still going to take quite a long time. And I think the overall outcome of this little bit of the legislation is that rent increases are going to be much more difficult, and rents are going to go up again, because landlords are going to put the rent up at every opportunity to compensate for this. Nice idea that it will help the tenants. In reality, it's going to do completely the opposite. Again, all these are set out on the .gov.uk website, all these little points in the bill if you do want to read it. It's quite a chunky document, so I'm not sure many people will go to that length. Another little change in the bill is that bidding wars on monthly rents are banned. You cannot charge more than the advertised rent. Once again, what's this going to do? This is just going to mean that landlords put the advertised rent up and expect people to bid under the advertised rent. Will it help tenants? I suspect it will only help the tenants that aren't brave enough to negotiate, probably the most vulnerable of tenants. The overall effect will be it puts rents up again. And the final point I'm going to cover is there is going to be a new Ombudsman for landlords and a database of private landlords. So every landlord will be required to register. I suspect every landlord will have to go through a vetting process, so you'll probably have to do something equivalent to a fit and proper test to prove you are capable of being a landlord, and probably pay a subscription fee. Again, what will the landlords look to do with any subscription fee they pay? They will want to get that back on the rent. So again, this is just another little way that in the long run, rents will probably go up. That's a very brief summary of the bill. It is being pushed forward. It's gone through the first and second readings in the House of Commons. The next stage is it's being reported on currently. So it's been through the committee stage. So the committee of MPs have gone through the report and put their recommendations on it. It's now being reported to the various industry bodies. Their feedback will be incorporated. Once all that's done, it will go to the third reading in the Commons. If that is approved, it then gets taken to the House of Lords and goes through a very similar process. It is being pushed forward at a rapid rate. I've not seen legislation go through this quickly for anything like this before. It does worry me that things are not going to be considered carefully. I suspect the Lords will bounce back quite a lot of the suggestions in the bill on the grounds that the Lords are probably better connected to landlords than the Labour MPs, who obviously have the vast majority in the Commons at the moment. So I think there is a possibility it will get toned down, and I also think it will take a little bit longer because there will be a little bit of fighting about the best way to do it between the Lords and the Commons. Once it's been through the Lords, it will then get royal assent and it becomes law, and they will just issue a date at that point when everybody has got to comply. Hopefully that's a very useful oversight of what we see happening at the moment. If you do want to object to this in any way, don't hold back. Write to your MP, tell them what you're thinking, tell them what your concerns are, because there will be concerns. It will affect, there's a lot of changes in one go. It will affect a lot of people, and it will affect the whole industry. And my overall feeling is that it will affect tenants more than it will affect anybody else. It will also affect landlords, but tenants are going to be the ones in the long run who are penalised about this idea of the perfect rental sector when we're trying to make landlords rent out their properties voluntarily. A lot of people are burying their head in the sand. Now is the time to start thinking about what you want to do with your rental property in the long run, because I think there will be a shortage of rental properties in the future, and it might be that you don't want to leave a rental property unless you've got another long-term one to go to, for instance as a tenant, because I think there's just going to be a great shortage. Any questions, please pop them in the comments or get in touch with me through our own website, southgateestates.co.uk, and I will do my best to answer them.